Hi, authors. I'm Tiffany Yates Martin, a career book editor and the founder of Foxprint Editorial, and this is Editing Quick Tips. Today I want to talk about one of my favorite quick tips because it is such a fantastic way for authors to learn to objectively assess their own work, the way that an editor approaches their work, and it's also such a good way to master storycraft in a way that removes you from the attachment you have to it as the author, where you're filling in all the blanks in your head, and it just connects you to the craft of the story. Basically, it involves doing exactly what you're probably doing a lot of. Authors love books. We love to read. And so if you're reading, if you're watching television, watching movies, all this is learning how to watch analytically. We're often told that writers write and writers read. And so of course we love books, most of us do read, but we don't read in a way that is conducive to figuring out our craft. If you're just reading for pleasure, you are being exposed to your craft, but it would be sort of like expecting to learn to be a great movie director or an actor from watching movies. You have to analyze what goes into making story work. First thing is what I call passive reading or watching, and that is what you're already doing. Reading books, watching movies, watching television. Just watch it. You can't really start analyzing something the first time that you're taking the story in. Even as an editor, when I'm given a new project, the first thing I do is read it like a reader. I'm not trying to make notes. I'm not trying to figure out what's working and what may not be working as well as it could. I'm just taking it in, orienting myself to the story. Now, once I'm finished, that's when I start asking myself some of the key questions that lets me start to circle in on what's working well in the story and what might benefit from more shoring up. Did I like the story? Did it engage me? Were there any places where my interest lagged? Did it feel slow? Did I care about the characters? Did I understand them? Did they feel real to me? Were their motivations clear to me? Did I understand why they wanted what they wanted? And did I care that they were going to get it? How was pacing? How was momentum? Were all the storylines wrapped up? Did it feel satisfying at the end? You're really just letting the whole story wash over you, and what you're observing is not so much the story as the story's effect on you. The reason that's important is that in this scenario, you are the audience, you're the reader. And one of the things we have to do as authors is figure out how to get the reaction and the engagement that we want from readers. So we have to get in reader mindset a little bit. So this is great practice for doing that. After you've watched or read anything you've enjoyed, just sit and start thinking about these big picture elements of the story and what was effective for you. Where did you feel engaged? What particularly was memorable for you? What was engaging for you? That's part one. If that's all you do, that's really helpful because you're learning how to get into that analytical mindset. You're putting yourself in reader brain a little bit, so you're seeing how objectively how story comes across on the page or how it comes across on the screen. And you're learning how to ask the kinds of questions that are going to let you circle in on the areas that may need more attention in your revision. That brings us to the second way of analyzing what you're watching and reading, getting into that editor brain, and that's what I call active reading or active watching. This is when you're going to go one step beyond what we just did. Now you've observed how you felt about it, what drew you in, what was effective. Now you're going to track that backward almost forensically and figure out why. So for example, if there was a place where you felt on the edge of your seat filled with suspense, go back to where that is in the book or in the movie or the television show and see if you can identify exactly what it was that was getting you on the edge of your seat. Not just how the storyteller did it, but what were you wondering at that time? One of the best ways to do this is with anything you've ever binge watched. There's a reason that you're binge watching. The creators of the show have created they've baited little hooks at the end of every episode to keep you going on to the next one. See if you can identify what those are. What questions are you asking? What uncertainty do you need to have resolved? What hook did they plant that you have to find out the answer to? See how the storyteller is setting that up. Similarly, if you feel really engaged in a character, see if you can figure out why. Was it because you understood their motivations and you related to it? Because you liked that character? Was it because what they wanted felt life and death, really high stakes to you? Now go back and see if you can forensically figure out what caused that, how the storyteller created that feeling in you concretely on the page or in the dialogue. Look at the plot. Were you surprised, or were you able to figure out what was going to happen? There's some satisfaction in figuring it out because we're storytellers, but if we can outwit the character or the storyteller, it's not as exciting for us as readers. If you couldn't figure it out, see why. Go see how those clues were planted if they were. If it felt like a twist that wasn't supported, go see why not. What was missing in the story that made it feel to you like you were being manipulated, or like the storyteller took a shortcut and that wasn't an organic plot twist because it didn't feel right, it didn't feel paved in. If you lost interest at any point, go to where you lost interest and see if you can figure out why. Was nothing happening in that scene? Did it not move the plot forward? Did it not develop the character? Were the stakes not high enough? There are so many of this type of question you can ask. I actually have an online course if you want to explore this more deeply, how to train your editor brain, that goes into very specific questions for every single story element in both active and passive watching that will help you learn to really analyze the stories that you're taking in, where you have that built-in objectivity and can learn to sort of osmose these craft elements and what goes into making them effective. Okay, hope that's helpful. As I mentioned, I do have a course called How to Train Your Editor Brain that's got a lot more information and specific questions that you can ask yourself and ways to analyze. I will put that link below along with my website and some links to other posts that may be helpful. If there are any topics that you would like to see addressed in a future editing quick tip, feel free to drop me a line on my contact page on my website below. If you like this, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe, and you can see some of my other editing videos on my YouTube channel. Thanks. See you soon.